Hi, my name is Keith Barrett, President and Legal Counsel of Vesta Settlements. In this video, we'll be discussing the financing contingency of the Virginia residential real estate contract, specifically an important change that was made on July 1st of 2016. It'll be helpful, though, to discuss some basic detail and structure of the contingency to understand the change. Not much has changed in the basic structure of the contingency. In this contingency addendum, we're still creating a financing contingency, which is typically anywhere between 21 and 24 days, is generally the custom and practice. And of course, it's contingent upon the buyer getting a written commitment for the specified financing. Importantly, there also remains language that says if the contingency is not satisfied by the deadline, the contingency will simply continue up to and including the settlement date. This is important because really the initial deadline that's put in the contingency isn't a deadline at all, given that the contingency continues. Now, up until June 30th of 2016, the seller had the option to deliver a notice to the buyer to either satisfy or remove the contingency. When that notice was given, the buyer then had 3 days to, in fact, satisfy or remove the contingency. The buyer, however, could also just remain silent for those 3 days, and if the buyer did remain silent at the end of that 3-day period, the contract would void automatically. This is where the important changes come in. Now, as of July 1st of this year, the seller still has the ability to deliver notice to the buyer. However, the delivery of the notice is now for the buyer to void the contract, not to satisfy or remove the contingency. Why is this important? Because the buyer, in the event that they remain silent for that 3-day period once the seller delivers notice, the contingency would then terminate and the contract would remain in full force and effect with the buyer not having a financing contingency at all. In other words, the buyer cannot be passive now by remaining silent, because the exact opposite will occur. Instead of the contract voiding, the contingency will terminate and the contract will remain in full force and effect. Where the buyer wants to get out of the contract, they would then have to take a proactive step during that 3-day period after the seller's notice of delivery to actually void the contract by providing a notice back voiding. So this is a big change, and it's something that you're going to have to be familiar with and know about, because we get, again, an exact opposite effect happening here. So just to recap very quickly, as of July 1 of 2016, where the seller delivers that 3-day notice to the buyer, the 3-day notice is not to satisfy or remove the contingency, it's for the buyer to void the contract. So if the buyer has any question, if they're feeling unsure about things, they are probably going to want to go ahead and void that contract, because if they don't, after that 3-day period expires, the contingency terminates, and the contract will move forward in full force and effect with no financing contingency. Now, from a strategy point of view, let's keep in mind that while this is a change, at the end of the day, it's not a major one, because the buyer still has the ability to void, and they can really void for any reason or no reason whatsoever. It doesn't have to be based on them qualifying for financing at all. So from a listing agent or seller's point of view, you do have to still remain careful and considered about whether or not to actually send that 3-day notice to the buyer. So please be aware of that as well. That should wrap things up on this video. If you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to contact us. And of course, visit our website at vestasettlements.com for other informational videos that may prove helpful to you. Thank you.